welcome to a new episode of Hello World. I am Pernilla Klein, and this is my colleague Liselott. We're going to talk about social sustainability within real estate today. So why should you measure social sustainability, and why is it important to keep track of the development? Well, sustainability is high on the agenda in real estate businesses. You can measure it from environmental impact, from financial impact, and of course a social impact. It's easy to understand why and how you measure it when it comes to the environmental impact or the financial part of it. It's important that you keep track of the environmental changes, and of course to have a stable financial situation is important for you as a company. But when it comes to the social sustainability, it's harder to actually understand why and how you keep track of it. You want residential areas that work and that people tend to stay and like to live in, and when they are feeling safety. But how do you keep track of the development? And how do you know when you have a real impact? Well, that's the things we're going to discuss today.
And today we're meeting with Martin Grander, who works at Malmö University as a researcher and lecturer within the field of social sustainability within real estate. And you've also been on the Swedish TV show Uppdrag Granskning. So hello Martin, and please tell us more about yourself and your work at the Malmö University.
Hi, very nice to be here with you. Yes, my name is Martin Grander. I'm an assistant professor in urban studies at the Department of Urban Studies at Malmö University, and I've been working here for quite a while now, and my main research area is social sustainability and the integration of cities and societies. So my big interest, I would say, is to investigate the social cohesion of cities. Are cities hanging together, and why is that? And if they are not hanging together, why is that? And what reasons for that could we find? What glue is missing for creating these sustainable cities? So I'm trying to have quite a large perspective on the development of in cities. And very much in focus here becomes housing and housing issues, because I think that housing is, of course, very interesting as it is the places where we dwell, where we live. But in a larger sense, housing is, of course, very interesting and important as it is so much more. It's connected to meaning making. It's connected to our identity, and so on. So it's very important to investigate the actual meaning of housing as well. And what we see also is that housing today is so important for the development of yourself as a human and of the development of cities, because your housing situation and your housing career is very much influencing your other life possibilities. For example, when it comes to employment, to income, education, and so on. So housing is very significant for the development of societies as a whole. And the role of housing and real estate companies is, of course, then a natural step to investigate. What role do housing companies and real estate companies have in creating more social, sustainable cities? So yeah, that's my main research interest, I would say.
Great, thank you. Is everything measurable, and do we need to measure everything?
Yeah, Well, I would say everything is measurable, but measuring is not everything, so to speak. I think that of course we could find way to measure everything, both in social dimensions, but also in economic dimensions. But that doesn't mean that we need to do it or that we actually benefit from doing so. I subscribe to the critique from many of my colleagues and also in the general debate that there is some kind of quantification of society going on, which means that we as humans are too often reduced to a statistical figure, a number, or a dot, a line in a spreadsheet, and so on. I think that's can become a problem, and it might obscure the both problems and actual solutions to the societal issues we have. So I believe that we should be a bit cautious about measuring both social aspects, but mostly economical aspects of social investments and so on. So I think we should be a bit cautious. But with that said, I think it's important to follow what we do and to evaluate everything that we do, because if we don't try to evaluate or measure the activities and the policies and practices that we do, we will not be able to know if they work. So I think we need to measure, but we must not be too put too large a weight on the results, but need to make these measurements in a way which is understandable and pragmatic, but then also to put it in a larger context to use it in the right way. So everything is measurable, but we shouldn't measure everything. But with that said, I think that we need to find good qualitative ways of understanding the development of cities, housing areas, and of course the living conditions of the individuals as well.
So that's then based on your research. I mean, what is the state of sustainability within housing?
Well, as we all know, we are living in cities which are segregated. We do have large divisions in cities, divisions in living conditions, and these differences in living conditions are also geographically demarcated. There are geographical boundaries which are working as barriers between people with different living conditions. So with regards to social sustainability, there is a lot of challenges in cities today, and those are, I could say, mostly connected to the segregation. And that, of course, is very interesting with regards to the previous question on measuring, because as I see it, we could reduce segregation basically in two ways. There are two main aspects that we could work on, because segregation is both social and geographical. So we can work with those two different aspects. So the first way would be then to try to reduce the differences, to even out the differences in living conditions, to make more equal cities. So that would be the first way. And the other way would be then to accept that we have a certain degree of differences in living conditions, but we try to mix people with different living conditions so that the actual geographical differences would not be too large, and the consequences of these demarcations would not be too large. So either you work on the living conditions or you work on the geographical dimensions and try to mix people, or you can do, of course, both, which I think is the most fruitful, the most successful way to attack segregation. And of course, then, if either way we choose to work with segregation, we need to measure what is happening. Are people's living conditions changing, or are people with different living conditions meeting, and what happens when they meet, and why are these changing occurring? So I think it's in that sense we need to measure the development of segregation and connect that to what we are doing with regards to reducing segregation.
Well, when you think about the research that you have been doing, what is the biggest surprise for you doing the research?
One big surprise from the previous research I have done with regards to social investments and social sustainability measures and so on is that we have this idea that the most valuable goal for everyone is to get a job and to become some kind of included in society by employment. And that is very much also the focus of many activities in areas which we call disadvantaged or distressed areas, that people are lacking jobs and their largest wish is to get employed. So when we follow those projects aiming for employment, I got surprised that when evaluating them, we could see that, okay, if you had gotten a job, that of course was great for those people. But even if you did not get a job, we could see that only to meet with other people, either they are in the same situation, being unemployed for a long time, for example, or to meet with people working at the real estate companies, at the housing companies, or at different institutions where they had some kind of mutual learning going on. That was very valuable for those people. So I was actually surprised that the social integration was perhaps even more important for those than the integration in the societal systems with regards to employment and so on. So I think that was very interesting to see that even if they came into a project with the aim of I need to get a job, I need to get employed, they got out from it empowered just by being in a group and meeting people representing the inclusion of society and perhaps getting a mentor or a new contact and so on. So yes, employment is very important, but also the social inclusion and getting some kind of cohesion and group cohesion was very important, and so that surprised me a bit. Another thing is that we could see that it's if you are consistent and working in different areas with which are then distressed or having low living conditions, we could see that if you are persistent and work hard with different projects for a long time, we could see that eventually the results will come, and when they come, they will come quite quickly. So we could see that, for example, employment rates, health figures, education results are increasing very quickly after a while. It could take quite a long time before we get there, but as you reach a certain point, and we're talking about several years, perhaps decades, we could see that things are happening quite quickly. So that is one big and important conclusion, that you need to be very persistent and have long-term perspectives when working with social sustainability projects and activities in these areas. So you can't really be confident that a 1 or 2 month or a year long project will actually lead to something. But if you hang in there and are consistent over a long time, you can see that the results will come, and when they come, they will come quite quickly.
That's interesting. And now you're talking about, I mean, if you're going to be sustainable and persistent over a long period of time, of course, you need to get your measurements right so that you can follow this over time. So I'm curious about the data that can be used in order to measure social sustainability. Can you give us some, you did list some examples now just a minute ago, so can you just tap into that? What data is available and how would you measure over time then to make sure that you see the results later on?
Well, we are happy that we live in Sweden where we are having statistical data about almost everything. So that's great. And also since the last 10 years, so we also have very good data on housing, apartments and so on. We have an apartment register. So actually we could almost have any data we want. So we have this Statistics Sweden, which are a very good partner to collaborate with. So they could help you with anything actually. So what we are following over time is then the like basic indicators of living conditions. So we look up on income, on employment, unemployment. We follow overcrowding in housing, and we look on rent levels. And also, for example, participation in local and national elections, which I think is very important to see some kind of measuring societal trust and so on. So we try to use a variety of indicators which reflects both personal development, trust towards society, and to housing companies, of course. To get quite a large picture. But I would say the most important is, of course, to follow the employment data, income data, and educational data. I think that's basic, of course, but we need also to complete the picture with other data. And I think that's the most interesting thing that we do to combine a lot of data into some kind of index and so on. So yeah, but data, there is tons of data, so it's actually a matter of trying to figure out which is the most important, and so on. And I also should perhaps mention that we look upon residential mobility. How do people move? From where do people move into a specific area, and if they move out, where do they move, and why, and so on. I think that's also very interesting to have in mind when discussing, for example, the development of a specific residential area. Why do people move there, and why do people move from the place, and why? Of course, that's very interesting and need to be analyzed together with the development of, for example, income data and employment data.
Okay, so the information you have in your study, is this available to any real estate company that would like to access it, or how does it work?
Absolutely. The Statistics Sweden their data is, of course, open for everyone who would like to access it. Of course, it's a matter of ordering a good set of data on a good geographical level. So it's of course about having a good discussion with SCB, Statistics Sweden, and of course it will imply some costs of the data. But everyone is of course allowed to order data. But of course, as we are working at universities, we are also having a bit better access to data which is personal and classified for other actors. So we are so of course it's a better situation to work together with a university when analyzing these data.
Yeah, also thinking about the method you're using, because I mean, to get access to the data is one thing, but to actually have a good method of using the data, that's the real key to get some good knowledge from the data. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. So what's the next step in your work, in your project?
Well, the next step would be, we have this large pile of statistical data which we have obtained from Statistics Sweden, and then we combine that with self-obtained data, which we are working with together with the real estate companies to compile. So because we do have this statistical data which says something, but we also need to know something about how the residents are perceiving and what they are thinking about the different projects and activities in the areas, but also of the life in general. So I think it's very important to combine the hard data with soft data, and it could be interviews. We use short interviews, surveys, and observation methods, and so on. So we try to take the soft data and the hard data, combine that into an analytical method, and then the next step would be to try to pinpoint the connection between development of living conditions and the actual thoughts about living conditions, the more qualitative data, and connect that with what is going on in the areas. What activities are pursued by the authorities, what are the housing companies doing with regards to social activities, and so on. And can we find a connection between changes in living conditions, between movements in and out of the areas, and so on, with the activities that the housing company and municipality, for example, are doing in the area? That is, of course, the key here. We need to find the connection and, in the best case scenario, also the causality between activities and effects. So that's the next step, and perhaps also the hardest step in the analysis that we are doing to find this, to connect the dots.
And I mean, this will be super interesting to see the outcome. So, I mean, if you were to put yourself in the shoes of a real estate company, how would you use the output of your research?
Well, that's a good question. I think if I was a real estate company, I would, of course, then try to learn from these kind of studies by initiating new projects, by fine-tuning what we are actually doing, and I think also to look on different possibilities of collaboration with other actors, because what we have found also is that a housing company, a real estate company, could do a lot of things by themselves, but the most successful projects are when the housing companies are working together with NGOs, with municipality, with the different authorities, and so on. So a key here is to enhance the collaboration between different sectors and different actors. So that would I do if I was a real estate company, and reading some of the reports on social sustainability provided by the researchers.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. It will be so interesting to follow and hear more about your research. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for inviting me.
It was nice having you. Bye.
See you.
See you.